Can you imagine coming home after a year away, only to find that someone has built multi-million-dollar mansions on your property? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And let me tell you, the story is wild. It all started when I inherited a beautiful piece of land from my grandfather. It wasn't huge, but it was in a prime location, nestled right next to a fancy, gated community. My plan was to eventually build my own dream house there. But life got busy, and I had to move away for a work project that was supposed to last about a year. Before I left, I made sure all my property taxes were paid up and everything was in order. I figured, what could possibly go wrong? Fast forward 12 months. I finally wrapped up my project and was so excited to get back and start planning my build. As I drove towards my property, I noticed something was different. The familiar, empty lot was gone. In its place stood two enormous, gleaming new mansions. For a second, I thought I'd taken a wrong turn. I checked my GPS. Nope, this was it. This was my land. My heart started pounding. I got out of my car and just stared. These weren't just houses. They were architectural marvels with manicured lawns, infinity pools, the whole 9 yards. I walked up to the property line, completely bewildered. A man in a golf shirt came out of one of the houses and asked if he could help me. I was so stunned I just blurted out, "This is my land." He looked at me like I had 3 heads. He chuckled and said, "I think you're mistaken. This is the new estates section of our community." He pointed to a sign I hadn't noticed before, proudly announcing the expansion of the neighboring HOA. That's when the pieces started to click into place. The HOA, they had simply absorbed my land and built on it. I tried to explain the situation, showing him the digital copy of my deed on my phone. He just scoffed and told me to take it up with the HOA board, then went back inside. I was furious, but I knew losing my temper wouldn't solve anything. It was time to get serious. My first stop was the county records office. I needed to confirm I wasn't going crazy. The clerk pulled up my records, and sure enough, the title was clean, in my name, with all taxes paid. There were no records of a sale, no transfers, nothing. The land was unequivocally mine. But then, the clerk found something else: building permits. Permits for 2 massive single-family residencies, filed and approved. And who was the applicant? The HOA. They had somehow managed to get permits to build on land they didn't own. My next call was to the HOA president, a woman who sounded incredibly annoyed that I was bothering her. I calmly explained who I was and that her association had built 2 mansions on my private property. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then she said, with unbelievable confidence, "That's impossible. We acquired that land legally." I asked her to provide proof of this acquisition. She got defensive and said she'd have their lawyer contact me, then hung up. It was clear they thought I was just some crackpot they could intimidate and ignore. They had no idea who they were messing with. I immediately hired the best real estate lawyer I could find. When I laid out the whole story for him, his eyes went wide. He said in all his years, he'd never seen such a blatant and arrogant land grab. The HOA had gambled. Thinking the owner of this vacant lot would never notice or would have the resources to fight back, they gambled wrong. Our first move was to send a formal cease and desist letter, along with a notice of trespassing and a demand for the immediate removal of their structures from my property. We attached irrefutable proof of my ownership. We knew they couldn't just tear down 2 multi-million-dollar homes. This was our opening move in a game of chess. Their lawyer responded, as promised. Their tone was much less confident this time. They claimed it was all a clerical error, a misunderstanding about the property lines during their expansion. A misunderstanding. They didn't misunderstand a few feet. They misunderstood my entire parcel of land. They offered to buy the land from me at a price that was frankly insulting, barely above what it was worth a year ago, before their illegal mansions were built on it. My lawyer and I had a good laugh at that. We rejected their offer immediately. Our counterproposal was something they never saw coming. We told them we had no interest in selling. The land had sentimental value. However, since they had already, so kindly, built 2 beautiful, income-generating properties on my land, we would be happy to let them stay for a price. We drafted a lease agreement. We calculated the fair market rental value for the land itself, factoring in its prime location and the fact that it now housed 2 luxury properties. Then, we added a premium. A big one, for the sheer audacity of what they had done. We weren't charging them rent for the houses. We were charging them rent for the ground underneath the houses. Their board must have had a meltdown. They tried to fight it, of course. Their lawyer threatened a long, drawn-out court battle. But my lawyer reminded them of the facts. They were trespassing. They had built illegally on my land. Every day they refused our offer. The damages we could sue for were piling up. They would have to pay for demolition, for my legal fees, for the time my land was unusable, and potentially punitive damages for their bad faith actions. Their legal position was a sinking ship. Faced with a public scandal and a legal battle, they were guaranteed to lose spectacularly. They had no choice. They folded. The day their HOA president signed that lease agreement was one of the best days of my life. I am now the landlord to a multi-million-dollar homeowners association. Every month a very, very large check is deposited into my account, paid by the same people who tried to steal my land. The 2 families living in the mansions have no idea about this arrangement. As far as they're concerned, they bought a house from the HOA, but the HOA doesn't own the land. I do. And they pay me handsomely for the privilege of using it. The irony is just delicious. I wanted to build one dream house, but this HOA built two for me. And now, the income from their rents is more than enough to buy and build another dream house anywhere I want. Sometimes, when things go spectacularly wrong, they can end up spectacularly right. It just goes to show you, always stand up for what's yours. You never know, you might end up with 2 mansions and a very profitable tenant. Thanks for listening to my crazy story. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. See you next time.